This morning, at 11:19 local time, a magnitude 3.5 earthquake hit 3 kilometers beneath the Solfatara crater in Pozzuoli, Italy. People felt 2 sharp jolts, followed by a loud boom that rang across the city. Within minutes, they were pouring into the streets across Pozzuoli and into Naples neighborhoods, including Saccovo, Pianura, and Vomero, some as far as 15 kilometers from the center of the quake. In Pozzuoli, a coastal town sitting right on top of the caldera, the response was instant. Mayor Gigi Manzoni posted that the city had turned on all emergency plans and was tracking a new earthquake swarm minute by minute. Police and civil defense teams went live. Schools were checked for cracks. People who have been through this dozens of times before still walked outside, because at Campi Flegrei, every earthquake carries a question nobody can fully answer. This quake did not come out of nowhere. A nighttime swarm of 11 tremors hit just 10 days earlier on February 17th and 18th, the strongest reaching magnitude 2.8, with booms loud enough to shake people awake. January 2026 alone saw 285 earthquakes across the caldera. Weekly swarms, monthly counts in the hundreds, and a population living under a yellow volcanic alert since 2012. That is daily life at Campi Flegrei right now. But to understand why today's quake matters, you need to know what 2025 did to this system. Because last year broke every earthquake record at Campi Flegrei since modern tools were put in place. 5 quakes topped magnitude 4 in the first 8 months alone. Before 2023, the system had only produced a handful of magnitude 3 events during the entire unrest period that started in 2005. The jump over the past 2 years has been unlike anything on record. The biggest hit on June 30th, 2025. A magnitude 4.6 earthquake struck at 4 kilometers depth near Boccoli. It was the strongest quake ever measured at Campi Flegrei during this crisis. The shaking knocked the ridge of Pinata Islet into the sea. Trains across Greater Naples stopped for up to 2 hours. Summer camps closed. The Naples subway shut down. And dozens of families could not go back to homes that had been cracked open by the force. That magnitude 4.6 was not a one-off spike. In March, a magnitude 4.4 struck at 1:25 in the morning, jolting hundreds of thousands of people awake. In the Bagnoli area of Naples, a floor caved in and a woman had to be pulled alive from the wreckage. Prime Minister Meloni ordered round-the-clock watching. The Civil Defense Minister, Nello Musumeci, declared a national state of alert. May brought another magnitude 4.4. Then, in late August, a swarm of 94 earthquakes ended with a magnitude 4, at just 2 kilometers depth beneath Pozzuoli. Because it was so shallow, the shaking on the surface felt sharper than usual, rattling walls and nerves alike. INGV Director Giovanni Macedonio told NPR in November 2025 that 2 of the latest quakes are the strongest they have ever seen. He said people have been forced to leave their homes, and that tens of families still cannot go back because of the damage. When the head of Italy's volcano watching agency says that, you get a sense of how serious this is. But the earthquakes are only half the picture at Campi Flegrei. Because beneath the ground, the Earth itself has been slowly pushing upward for 20 years. The process is called bradism. It is a slow, caldera-wide swelling driven by pressure from below. Since 2005, the ground at the tracking station of Rione Terra in central Pozzuoli has risen 1.4 meters, roughly the height of a kitchen counter. That passes the peak from the 1982 to 84 crisis, which forced 40,000 people out of Pozzuoli. The current uplift has gone beyond it and is still climbing. The rate has sped up in clear steps. 2.5 centimeters per year from 2005 to 2013. 6.5 centimeters per year by 2020. It jumped to roughly 2 centimeters per month by mid-2024 and peaked at 25 millimeters per month in October and November of 2025. The latest INGV reports show the rate has slowed to about 10 millimeters per month. Some watchers have taken this as a good sign. Scientists are careful about that read. INGV has said again and again that short-term dips are completely normal for this system and should not be taken to mean the crisis is winding down. Similar lulls have happened before, only to be followed by another speed-up. Nobody tracking the data has let their guard down, so the ground is rising, the earthquakes are getting stronger, and now there is a third piece of the puzzle. This one changes what we know about how the whole system is wired together. In July 2025, a team led by Giacomo Rapagnani from the University of Pisa and INGV published a study in Communications, Earth, and Environment. They reported the first ever detection of very long-period earthquake signals at Campi Flegrei. These are seismic waves that pulse at very low speeds, around 0.1 hertz, lasting 60 to 120 seconds each. More than 12 have been picked up since 2018, and until this study, nobody knew they were there. The signals come from 3.6 kilometers down, right between the deep pressure source pushing the ground up and the Solfatara crater at the surface, where volcanic gas vents into the open air. The team reads them as vibration inside gas-filled cracks that act as channels, linking the deep magma source straight to the steam vents at Solfatara. Think of it as a plumbing system running from the bottom of the caldera to the top. The good news is that the vibration pattern has stayed the same over the whole tracking period, meaning the cracks are not getting wider or changing shape. Co-author Seska said they see no signs of an eruption coming at Solfatara right now. But the deeper point stands. The plumbing of Campi Flegrei runs straight to the surface through active gas pathways. If those crack systems start acting differently, if the vibration pattern shifts or new channels open, that would be one of the earliest warning signs that something deeper is changing. Scientists now have a new way to watch for it. And here is where the picture gets truly hard to read, because depending on which study you look at, you can come away either somewhat relieved or very worried. The data backs both views. On the calmer side, a Stanford and INGV team published in Science in September 2025. They used AI to grow the earthquake catalog from 12,000 events to over 54,000. The bigger dataset showed a ring-shaped fault system beneath Pozzuoli, with no earthquake activity below 3.7 kilometers. That means magma has not been caught moving upward toward the surface. A January 2026 study, led by Caricchi, ran models on 75 years of unrest data. They found the pressured magma chamber at about 4 kilometers depth is too small. It would need 2 to 3 more decades of growth to reach even the size of the 1538 eruption. Co-author Tommaso Pavetta said flatly that current conditions do not support an eruption. Volcanologist Warner Marzocchi told NPR the quakes are more likely caused by gases pushing superheated water up through rock, not magma itself moving upward. But he added that the chance of an eruption is not zero, and staying alert is not optional. Now here is the other side, and it has just as much weight behind it. A 2025 study found that earthquake activity has bunched more and more along a single fault line, with over half of all events and most of the energy coming from one crack. The authors say this points to the birth of a new fault caused by the volcano stretching rock apart. The rocks beneath the caldera may have passed their breaking point. They are no longer just bending, they are starting to snap. Then there is the gas chemistry. Calero and colleagues published in Nature Geoscience that the mix of sulfur types coming out of Solfatara has been shifting since 2018. That shift lines up with gas escaping directly from magma as pressure drops around it, a much more alarming reading than hot water alone. The main steam vent at Solfatara now reads 173 degrees Celsius, and that number keeps climbing. Carbon dioxide output runs at roughly 5,000 tons per day. And Stanford's Bill Ellsworth warned that the fault lengths his team mapped suggest a magnitude 5 earthquake is possible. He said this has been known as a risky place going back to the 80s. But now, for the first time, we can actually see the rock structures that make it dangerous. If you are finding this useful, subscribe. We cover volcanic and earthquake events like this as they happen, with the full picture you need to follow what is going on. So, where does all of this leave the people who actually live on top of this caldera? The caldera stretches roughly 12 by 15 kilometers across western Naples, covering Pozzuoli, Boccoli, Monte di Procida, Quarto, and big Naples areas like Bagnoli and Fuorigrota. About 900,000 people live inside and around it. The red zone holds 500,000 who face a direct threat from pyroclastic flows. Fast-moving waves of super-hot gas and rock that destroy everything in their path. The yellow zone adds over 800,000 more under heavy ash risk. The escape plan calls for moving all 500,000 red zone residents out within 72 hours during a red alert. The government has put real money into it. The Decreto Campi Flegrei set aside €388 million for building checks and quake-proofing. The European Investment Bank approved up to 1.4 billion euros in loans for safety work, aiming to finish by 2032. Civil Defense Minister Musumeci admitted the real problem when he said too much building in the area, which should have been stopped decades ago, now creates real trouble for any plan to get people out. INGV researcher Giuseppe Mastrolorenzo was asked point-blank whether the escape plan works. His answer was blunt: no, not at all. He called the 72-hour window a very hopeful guess. A national drill in October 2024 drew about 1,500 volunteers out of more than 500,000 people in the danger zone. INGV Director Macedonio gave what might be the bluntest take of all when he told reporters, "There really are no steps you can take to protect yourself from a pyroclastic flow." For a look at what this system can produce, the Campanian Ignimbrite eruption about 39,000 years ago was a VEI-7 event, the biggest blast in Europe in 200,000 years. It shot an eruption column 44 kilometers into the upper atmosphere and dropped ash across 3.7 million square kilometers, reaching as far as Russia. This is the same system sitting beneath Naples today. The last eruption was far smaller. Monte Nuovo formed over 1 week in 1538. Scientists figure the current chamber would need 2 to 3 more decades of growth to match even that small eruption. Campi Flegrei is not the only big caldera acting up. In early 2025, the Santorini and Colombo system in Greece went through its worst earthquake crisis since 1964, with over 28,000 quakes. Research published in Nature showed Santorini and the underwater Colombo volcano share a linked deep magma system, mirroring what we know about Campi Flegrei and Mount Vesuvius at roughly 10 kilometers depth. Globally, 2025 saw 71 confirmed eruptions from 63 volcanoes. A volcano in Ethiopia blew for the first time in recorded history, ending 12,000 years of quiet. Iceland's Reykjanes Peninsula kept up its eruption cycle. Volcano watching teams worldwide are stretched thin, and the most crowded caldera on Earth needs steady, close attention. So where does everything stand right now? Today, February 28th, 2026. The alert level stays at yellow phase 2, brought in during November 2025. The uplift rate has slowed. The earthquakes keep coming. Every number scientists track: ground rise, quake counts, gas output, steam vent, heat, has been going up for years. The ground has risen 1.4 meters. Record-breaking quakes hit 5 times in 2025. A newly found crack system runs from the deep magma source straight to the surface. A new fault appears to be forming as the caldera rocks give way. And still, the scientific agreement holds. There is no proof of magma moving toward the surface. The chamber is likely too small for an eruption. The shaking appears driven mostly by hot fluids rather than molten rock pushing up. The gap between those facts is not a failure of science. It is the honest state of what we know about a system that has done everything from small, week-long eruptions to disasters that reached across a continent. Nobody is saying the danger is made up. What they are saying is that we cannot yet tell exactly what this buildup means or where it goes. The system beneath Pozzuoli and western Naples is more active right now than at any point since we started watching it with modern tools. The people who live there felt it again this morning. And the question that volcano scientists, government officials, and 900,000 residents are all asking is the same one they have been asking for years. When does unrest turn into an eruption? And will anyone know in